its inception. The space of free discussion and articulation should be available in the university if it wants to fulfill its societal function consciously and not blindly. All the excellent projects, all the fruitful concrete engagements stem from this source. Different ways to calculate it, to cultivate it, present different ways of organization of a university. The primary form of responsibility of the university is this responsibility toward itself, its self-responsibility. It is not just added as one more function, it is essential to all its operations, something I have started to understand after reading and listening to Chris Breen, who will be speaking after me, and so you will have the pleasure of listening to him as well. In a way, responsiveness is essential to any institution, and responsibility is what sets universities apart. It is by following the call of self-responsibility that university places itself apart from other ordinary institutions and strives towards an utopian goal, not adapting university to life, but on the contrary, forming life according to the ideals of university. Thank you very much.
I'll start again. Good afternoon, everybody, and Madam Rector, thank you for the invitation to be here. My friend and colleague, Professor Giga Zdenia, and I, we have this continuing dialogue developing the notion of academic responsiveness and responsibility. And every time I listen to him, I learn more. And I very much hope that something like the same will happen in reverse. Let me begin with a very general question. What do you think universities are for? Why do we have universities? If you think about it a bit, and particularly if you're an academic, you probably come up and say the basic function of a university is teaching and research. We train graduates, we train professionals, we do research, we create knowledge, and that's true. But as somebody who has over decades worked in various jurisdictions, I've worked in South Africa, I've worked in Australia, I've worked in England, I now work in Hong Kong, I've visited many universities worldwide. My observation is that academic life, if you're not careful, it becomes a bit formalized as only focused on academic outputs. Particularly if you're a young academic, the pressure is on you to build a career by publishing papers in high-class journals, by graduating research students, by going to conferences, by writing books. And if we're not careful, that becomes an end in itself. So I would like to raise with you the question, if that's what we do, that shows what we are good at. But what are we good for? All this wonderful academic work, all this high quality academic work, what is the effect of it in society? What difference does it make to people's lives? So that thought has been growing with me over a long time now, and I've noticed, and now I'm beginning to connect with what Giga was saying, I've noticed over time that there is a move, an international tendency towards a change in our understanding of what universities are for. And that change involves our role in society. In addition to, I subscribe, like everybody in this room, to the value of academic work and the value of academic outputs and so on. Take that for granted, please. But in addition, can your university, my previous universities, anybody's university, can we articulate what contribution we make to society? How is all that wonderful academic knowledge deployed? You see, the question. So that tendency to be more connected to society, to ask yourself what are we good for and not only what are we good at, that has manifested itself in different ways. Giga has already mentioned a few of them. It manifests itself in, for example, the notion of the so-called third mission of a university. There's teaching and research, and then there's engagement with society. It manifests itself in the notion of responsiveness. When COVID came, many universities felt they needed to respond to the pandemic. Many universities feel they need to respond to the United Nations Societal Development Goals and to build a portfolio of how they contribute to the SDGs. It manifests itself in international networks. There's, for example, an international network called the University Social Responsibility Network. You could easily Google it. It manifests itself in the impact agenda. What is collectively as a university, what has been your impact in your local communities, in your city, nationally, internationally? All of this is in keeping with the same thought process that led to what David was describing of the Magna Carta Universitatum. There was a need to reflect this move to a greater understanding of the mission of higher education in an updated document, in an updated Magna Carta. And I can do something that David didn't do. I can actually read to you what the updated Magna Carta says. So the original document, the 1988 document, started from the basic principle of academic freedom and autonomy and so on. And that's still valid. Again, we must emphasize that. Nothing has been thrown away from that. But the new document starts from a different angle. The new document, the 2020 document, begins by saying, I quote, "Universities acknowledge that they have a responsibility to engage with and respond to the aspirations and challenges of the world and the communities they serve." So between 1988 and 2020, an emphasis was added. To the academic freedom emphasis was added the academic responsibility emphasis. And this project that we're engaged in now, that is trying to build up the second leg, the academic responsibility idea, to the same level of esteem, that when we talk about the function of a university, we talk about both of these things. So let me take that a little further. It's academic freedom, it's a bit like academic excellence. We all think we know what it is. We all believe in the value of it. When it is under attack, as it often is, we all come to the defense of academic freedom. And my colleagues, the Magna Carta, we all believe in that. We are strong supporters of that. Please take that for granted again. But I'd like to put to you a proposition. The proposition is this: with freedom comes responsibility. You cannot have freedom without responsibility. If you had total freedom without any responsibility, you would be moving towards anarchy. So no less a person than the great Nelson Mandela said this after the democratic election. We went through our own political upheavals in South Africa, where I grew up. In 1994, there were the first democratic elections, and Mandela became president, and in his first State of the Nation address, this was his key message: with freedom comes responsibility. I put that to you as a principle. Now, if that is true for freedom in general, it must be true for academic freedom as well. If academic freedom is a manifestation of freedom, and if freedom can only come coupled with responsibility, then what is the notion of academic responsibility? There must be something that comes with academic freedom. So we, as you know, we spend a lot of time debating, talking about academic freedom, but you would only now begin to hear every now and again discussions about academic responsibility. And that change, I would argue, that change in the way we see the mission of higher education, that is exactly a move towards accepting more voluntary responsibility for our role in society. Let me immediately add a couple of clarifications. The first thing, please understand this, when I speak of academic responsibility, I do not mean an externally assigned obligation. I do not mean that the state or rich people or criminals or anybody else should be able to tell you what your responsibility is. That would be contrary to academic freedom. But remember, not every responsibility is a duty. A duty is something that somebody gives to you and says you must do this or that or the other. That's a duty. A responsibility is something that you can adopt freely and voluntarily for yourself. So if, for example, you adopt a child, that is a responsibility that you have voluntarily chosen to take on. It's not a duty that somebody assigned to you. So by academic responsibility, I mean voluntarily chosen responsibilities towards society. This is where these notions come together. The mission change in our role in society and the notion of responsibility come together. Of course, as you know, there are many big societal challenges. No university can address all the big societal challenges out there. But every university can address some societal challenges. And my argument, my advocacy, if you like, is that every university should adopt for itself a portfolio of which societal challenges does it choose to respond to, and how does it do that. And that is why our group, the research committee of the Magna Carta Observatory, we propose two fundamental propositions, and I'm going to give you these propositions for you to think about. The first one is, every university, anywhere in the world, you may or may not find yourself in a situation of conflict, you may or may not find yourself in a country with deep societal problems, but any university everywhere should decide for itself what is its responsibility to society and how would it choose to exercise that. So you may, a university may say, we would like to work on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals number 3 and 5 and 17, or whatever the case may be. You may say, we feel we have an obligation, we have a responsibility to defend democracy. Another university may choose to focus on climate change. You may choose to focus on poverty or inequality. That's up to you. But each university should be free, voluntarily, to decide for itself where are its responsibilities to society and how is it going to act on them. So that's the first proposition. And the second proposition is no university should neglect to engage in self-investigation along these questions. I believe that a university should not say it's got nothing to do with us. I think in these days, anywhere in the world, it is no longer tenable for a university to say, we only do research and teaching and that is it. We do not go beyond that. So the overall thrust of all of this and the projects you're going to be hearing about, and very likely in your own university, is the basic question, what do you see as your responsibility to society, and what are you doing about it? And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, Rector and colleagues. My pleasurable task is to take the argument on just a little bit further. The rhetoric associated with social responsibility, I think, is being admirably expressed by our two colleagues. My task is to describe how we've taken that rhetoric a little bit further in terms of constructing this particular project of which this discussion is all about. And as David mentioned, we decided on having a project which is going to be based on a number of institutions volunteering to do some action case research on particular aspects of the social responsibility question. Entirely up to them as to which issues they picked. And as it turned out, we got 6 excellent issues which we have been exploring with the universities concerned. And in particular, of course, they sort of cover the whole area of displaced people. Ukraine, of course, has been very much in our minds. We've been looking at, in the case of Bangladesh, underprivileged communities like women in that type of society. And all of these, of course, are areas really of quite major difficulty as far as there being crises which have got to be addressed by society. And the notion is that universities can be of great help there. But we've also got some projects as well, for example, in Dublin, which is really looking at what we should be thinking about in terms of community education and community research, which may or not have anything to do with being done on the campus itself. The campus is the world, and in this case, of course, it's without walls. So in this case, of course, we've created a situation where 6 universities have been invited to address this particular issue. Some of them, of course, have been looking at crises for which there had to be an urgent reaction. Had to be. Others, of course, have been looking at aspects of societal engagement which are part of the normal process of developing the institution, but in quite different directions from that which had been used to in the past. So I think with this in mind, our audiences for these case study research exercises have been those who can do something about the issues in whatever organizations they come to. So the research is addressed certainly to the academic community, but it's fundamentally, I think, addressed to policymakers, national and regional. It's addressed to economic stakeholders, to social stakeholders. It's addressed to certainly heads of institutions. It's addressed to people at various levels with institutions. And it's addressed fundamentally at people who can use the research for developing approaches to the sort of problems which we have in mind. So it's very much a type of research project which is concerned with the user who can do something about it in society. Now, it's clear, I think, from the Magna Charta that one of its functions was to inspire universities to go in this direction. And without any doubt, I think, it's one of the hoped-for advantages of the work we're doing is that the outcomes will be very inspiring to all the groups which we've mentioned so far, so that they will cease looking at universities as simply repositories of knowledge, but as active agents of change in society, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally as well. They should be inspired, if you like, to use their academic expertise for the benefit of those who have got difficulties, who need particular assistance. And this is where, of course, the importance of external engagement comes out. Because you can't have partnership by yourself. You've got to have partnership with somebody. You've got to engage with somebody. So the notion of how we engage with society therefore becomes really important. But fundamentally, I think it's asking rectors, can we not use these projects to enrich the work of the university, to bring in various perspectives which will catalyse change, will catalyse creativity and so forth. So what we are, I think, expecting of the sum total of our projects is that they should be inspiring. Now, if they are to be inspiring, then it follows, of course, that they've got to be informative in a comprehensive way. They should not be presenting findings in a dry, dusty, sort of academic tome type of format, but should nonetheless be presenting to readers, to potential users, important data on the content of specific issues and on the content of what policies and processes and practices have been adopted in order to give examples. And I think the use of these cases as being providing examples is rather important. Now, we don't want to do this in any sort of, simplistic way, because we fully recognize that there are different success factors which may work in different circumstances. In situation X, something might work. In situation Y, the same thing might not work. So we need to be careful about the situation variables involved in doing this law. But what we are fundamentally about, I think, is to exhibiting good practice. One of the terms which I think we quite often use in the project is using the cases and using the universities as living laboratories. And I think that's a good way to describe it as any. So, because in the laboratory, I guess we take in a particular problem, we try to experiment with certain solutions, and experimentation, of course, does involve us being self-critical as researchers. And it means, of course, that if we are beginning to do these action research projects where we're setting up details of particular activities, we're setting out various processes which we're going to use and so forth, then we ought to be capable of analysing our own success honestly ourselves, but also getting other people to analyse the success as well. Now, one of my friends in the United States, he always reckons that if an individual analyses his own performance, then it's doomed to success. And the point, therefore, of course, of engagement is that he was subjecting the university to a fairly penetrating set of criticisms by partners who are working with us, but from different perspectives. So we've got co-creation of knowledge, but bringing different things to the party, if we look at it in that way. Now, the thing, of course, is with all this lot is that it's fun, in a sense, doing it in a one-off way. We probably feel better and excited. The thing with the social responsibility, of course, is that it's not just a sort of temporary option which we do for the fun of it. It should be something which is integral to the culture of the university, and therefore, of course, one of the things that all our cases are concerned about is sustainability and embedding the findings and the style of work and the processes and the way in which we behave, not only to the particular question in mind, but also to a whole range of related things. So social responsibility doesn't become an add-on thing, it becomes a way of life. And I think if something's going to be a way of life, then obviously human resource management has got to relate to that as well. Promotion criteria have got to relate to it. Reward systems have got to relate to it. The training of academic staff and administrative staff has got to relate to it also. So with this in mind, therefore, I think what we're about is making a difference. These cases are all about impact. They're not about just presenting a nice, elegant piece of literature. They go far beyond there. And this is one of the great challenges, I think, which the project has got. Now, this impact, of course, it could take several forms. On the ground, of course, it should be very much action research projects which are going to lead to action on the ground of a discernible nature. And therefore, one of the things, of course, we're concerned with in terms of impact is what are the changes which can be directly related to the work which we are doing. And they could be all sorts of different things. They could relate to public understanding, they could relate to provision of new and creative services for different types of groups, like the women in Bangladesh, like the good people in Ukraine who are coming into Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and so forth. But I think we're also looking for impact on the university itself. And the notion is, if you like, that the university should have moved towards evolving to change its character as a result of the imperatives of doing projects such as we have. This is not an instant fix, of course, because universities, as we know, are very traditional organizations. There's an inbuilt inertia, there's an inbuilt comfort zone, and a lot of the things, of course, we get coming from outside are challenges to that comfort zone. But universities are well capable of adapting to this. Now, I mentioned, we've got these 6 cases. They're each looking at particular issues, which are finite issues in their own way, and interestingly, they link together. But there are also, I think, a number of cross-cutting themes which we're going to be trying to explore as well. And with this in mind, I think the idea is that we should be able to determine some of the critical success factors which will govern, whether our social responsibility initiatives are going to be successful and embedded and effective, or merely, nice little interesting things which a few interested people did and then the whole thing stopped. So with this in mind, I think we are going to look at a number of different things across the whole range of case studies. One of these, of course, would be the nature of how we identify environmental opportunities. It's easy enough, I suppose, to identify environmental crises, but there are a whole lot of other opportunities as well. The question is, how do we identify these? How do we interpret some of these issues which are around? Do we just do it ourselves, or do we do it together with our partners in society? And how do we design sort of means of using the educational and research and knowledge transfer processes of the university in a way which meets these particular needs? And it may be, of course, that some of the curriculum we got is totally irrelevant as far as a lot of these are concerned. If that's the case, why are we teaching it in the first place? If we are a social user-related institution. This is a debatable point, because you could argue that you should be teaching things, for the sake of the subject rather than necessarily for its worth. So there's a balance between the two, but it's a subject well worth asking. The second big question I think we'd be looking for is, having accepted the fact that there is a need to work on this particular project area, how do we generate agreement that it's a good thing, the university should do it? Now, in the case of a huge crisis, it's probably rather simpler. In the case of something where the university is in a very happy state of mind, doing rather well, financially okay, that's a much more difficult job. So the question, of course, of how we generate the ownership of the academic community to new things like this, which are outside the tried and trusted processes of the centuries, is, I think, another point altogether. So that means, of course, that we need to, in these cases, look at the politics of how we engage with the academic community. Look at the politics of how we engage with our external partners. One of the big things, of course, about engaging with external partners is trust. When we start these particular projects, they might trust us, they might not. They might know quite a bit about us, they might not. They might be totally confused by some of the terminology which we use, which is academic terminology, rather than terminology of practitioners or professionals. So there's a great big learning process involved. There's a sort of spectrum, if you like, of activities through which we can detect how the maturity of relationships with stakeholders and users can develop. So that's the second thing we're looking for. The third thing I think which we're looking at is how leaders behave in these circumstances. How a rector, how the senior staff of the university begin to figure out, how they can move a university from where it is to where it ought to be in relation to some of these big initiatives or potential initiatives which are coming up. And this is a tricky thing. This is a very tricky thing because it's not just a question, of course, of leadership within the institution, and then HR fulfills quite an important function. The role of middle management fulfills a very important function. It's also a question of how we lead a community. Now, some of the finest examples I think I've seen of institutions which have been very successful in this domain is where the rector and his senior colleagues have been major instruments of community change, regional change in a fairly broad way. And there's a number of examples of that going back several decades. So it's not only leadership, I think, within the university, it's leadership in the community as well. The fourth thing I think we'll be looking at is what are the inhibitors which get in the way of us doing non-traditional things, getting in the way of doing non-traditional research, non-traditional PhDs, get in the way of doing non-traditional teaching programs and so forth. So there's academic constraints. There may be human resource constraints of a contractual nature. One country I know very well indeed find it very difficult to engage in these sorts of projects simply because of the fact that the contracts do not permit it to staff to be out of the building for more than 5 hours a week, which is clearly nonsense if you're going to engage in community type work. There's the question of intellectual property might come in at some point. Is the question of quality assurance. A lot of quality assurance is not attuned to non-traditional academic work at all, and it probably should be. Then, of course, we got the fifth big question, which is how does this activity nourish the academic heart of the university? We've all got faculties, citadels, as we might call them, castles where the drawbridge goes up. How do we penetrate the faculties? We need to do it, of course, because a lot of these projects are multidisciplinary in a big way. You can't do it by a single discipline because there are problems. Problems in society do not recognize the existence of disciplines. Problems demand solutions. Solutions usually come from a range of disciplines working together, as climate change, environmental studies clearly shows. So the question is, of course, how do we sort of penetrate the academic heart of the institution so that the social stuff is not tucked away in one corner, but it's an integral part of what all faculties, departments and research centres are about. So what we're about then, I think, is creating fundamental questions on impact in relation not only to the university, but also in relation to our partners in society, what we might call, if you like, the user community. How do we do it vis-a-vis politicians? We've usually got a very limited view of what universities are capable of. How do we do it with our students, potential and otherwise? So there's a whole series of quite big questions. But the main thing is, of course, the rhetoric of social responsibility is intellectually very, very compelling. The question is, how do we translate this into action, and how do we move the institution on? And happily, I think we are privileged in being in a situation where we've got 6 excellent case studies who are going to take us quite some distance along that road. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Nomeda Gudeliane. I am advisor to Deputy Rector at Mykolas Romeris University in Lithuania. Madam Rector, Secretary General of Magna Carta Universitatum Observatory, distinguished professors, students, colleagues, friends, thank you very much for this very warm welcome and the opportunity to share Mykolas Romeris University story of helping Ukrainian people. February 24th, 2022, we in Lithuania, and probably you people in Sakartvelo, in Poland, in Ukraine, got up with our blood, got sick. The war was started in Europe. We went to university and we couldn't work. We just felt that we need to open and broaden our hearts to do something to help people who are suffering, have started to suffer the war. And we started working. We just started talking to students to move from single to double room apartments in the dormitory. Rector signed and wrote letter that was distributed to Ukrainian universities, to professors, to students, just welcoming them to Lithuania to have a safe refuge from the war. We also distributed letters to our international partners, to our networks, to alert and advocate Ukrainian universities that are suffering the war. Less than a week, and a bus of women and children came to our university. Another bus came from Kharkov. School director just put the kids, some grandmas, on the bus and arrived in Lithuania. And those people didn't have where to stay, they didn't have any food. They just were standing as they left home, some of them even in their pajamas. And we just felt that we need to accommodate them, to provide shelter, to provide food. Some of them forgot medicine in Ukraine. We had to connect them to medical care, to kindergartens, to schools. There were some teenagers, children from Kharkov, from other areas who are coming to our university. And we as university, as all universities, had public space, had shelter, and we could provide them like a place to stay and accommodate them in our dormitories. The number of the school children accumulated drastically. From 40 people, it became 400, next day 500, 600. And we had to do something with those children, with their grandmas, mothers. We had old university canteen that was not operating and put a message to social media, and people started to bring food, to bring everything they had at home. And we just realized that how many things we don't need. We don't need like extra shirts, we don't need as much food, as much balls, guitars, etc. And there were people at our campus that needed all those things. And people responded. We just put one message to social media, and the mass of people just came and brought everything for humanitarian aid. They just wanted to do something, but didn't know how to organize, where to help, which direction to go, where to bring things that people needed. And our university took the lead and provided the space to accommodate those people and help other people in our community. People, refugees from, like we supported, there were some refugees who lived in other areas, and all the system was not prepared. Schools were not prepared, kindergartens were not prepared, state institutions didn't know what to do, there was no experience. we knew that via social sciences and humanities university, we accumulated know-how and knowledge and expertise for 30 years how to treat vulnerable people, but we didn't have any experience, and we had to learn just here and now. And the people in the community responded dramatically. They were like police joined to provide guidance for the students, medical doctors, schools, kindergartens, NGOs, charities, everybody just joined in the process. And I would like to share some pictures, some slides from where are we standing at, and to make it more visual. So now I would like to present the project where we at almost 3 years after February 2022. The overall aim of the project is to carry out research on university and community engagement with regard to social sciences university can play in helping war or any crisis-related people. And we have 3 main objectives. Based on our university documented experience, provide a framework and concrete practical examples for the universities that might appear in similar situation worldwide. Also, our next objective is to review the concept of a responsive and responsible university, exploring how higher education institution can lead and serve as societal change agent in the times of crisis. And also, as it was mentioned, analyze community attitudes from 2 years perspective with regard to the third university mission, that is outreach to society that was activated during the war in Ukraine. And our research is structured as follows. We just provide general context, conceptual framework, our university actions, what we did and what we do, academic community survey results, and lessons we have learned through this 3 years process. According to the data of United Nations, over 6 million Ukrainian refugees are spread out throughout Europe, throughout different countries. Over 500,000 of them are outside of Europe. Nearly 4 million refugees are displaced people within the territory of Ukraine. So in total, about 10 million people are affected by war just by leaving the country. And how many people are injured, killed, how many societies destroyed, divorces, families separated, and other problems caused by war. In Lithuania, we welcomed about over 90,000 refugees, and the numbers are increasing every week, every day. Almost 1/3 of them are small children or teenagers, and most of the refugees are women and children who had to leave their husbands, fathers in Ukraine. A brief overview of our universities. We are a state-owned, international-minded public university of social sciences operating since Lithuania restored its independence in the 1990s. We have 3 campuses in major cities of Lithuania, enroll about 6,000 students, about 650 academic staff, and we are structured within 5 academic units like law school, public security academy, faculty of public governance and business, faculty of human and social studies, and Sudovian Academy. And we have alumni network of nearly 50,000 alumni. So how did we react to crisis back 3 years ago, what we do now, and what is in the future waiting for us? So I started with the immediate humanitarian response our university provided to refugees that appeared in Lithuania. And we led and empowered civil society to donate, to help Ukrainian refugees in Lithuania and Ukrainians living in Ukraine by sending humanitarian aid to the small cities, to villages in Ukraine. For us as a university, the primary interest was researchers, students, academia. So we were employing Ukrainian researchers, enrolling students, and welcoming a refugee school, high school, which I mentioned previously. We also carried out advocacy and solidarity with Ukrainian universities, like mobilizing our national and international networks, like European Women Rectors Association, International Association of Universities, Francophonic Association of Universities, etc. Recently, this autumn, we mobilized our legal community, our alumni, to fundraise and provide money for medical treatment of children who have burns and injuries from war in different parts of Ukraine. We bring them to Lithuania and provide medical treatment. We have also started thinking about long-term impact and strategic planning, the way how the war is affecting our society, our community, whole Europe. And together with partners, we just realized that we need to support teachers, educators who are working with migrants, because the knowledge of working with migrants is absent in Lithuania, at least. And now we are also helping to learn Lithuanian and to integrate, because the war has lasted over almost 3 years already, and there is no way out, and hopelessness, how to affect the situation. And most likely those refugees will stay in Lithuania or go to other European countries, and they need to learn the language, to have equal opportunities, to get equal salaries in Lithuania, and feel like included in the society. So some pictures. We would collect humanitarian aid for two years and distribute to the people, local people in need in our communities, and send them to Ukraine, because the people needed food, clothing, and the same situation is happening further. When Russia started attacking energy facilities, people didn't have any electricity, what to warm up food, so we started collecting used cans and making them into put the warm wax and making them like candles. We connected beehive associations throughout Lithuania who could provide the wax, and the local communities who could bring used cans to our university. Later on, our National Library took the initiative and started continuing this way. We also empowered children, teenagers who were studying at our university, to fundraise for their families, for their communities in Ukraine. So they would make cookies, sell different handworks to our community people, to our local community people, and raise funds and send to their communities. So we collected humanitarian aid ourselves and empowered the teens to do the same. Regarding academic support and inclusion, we cooperated with our Research Council of Lithuania, with Erasmus, with Francophonic Universities Agency, and other international organizations, fundraising for researchers from Ukraine and enabling them to continue research, and for students to continue their studies like for semester, for a longer in Lithuania. And our leadership took such a notion that this war shouldn't prevent researchers from carrying out research, that researchers shouldn't be forced to leave to other labor market, most likely, most of the times lower qualifications, but to keep their career in academia. So, and our leadership encouraged all our community to co-publish with Ukrainian professors, to include them into different projects we are applying. And they said, like, if you're applying for a different European project or other project, please include a Ukrainian partner. This way you will provide support, because all the funds go to military in Ukraine, and people have like very small budget for salaries, and they're losing their intellectual capital. This is the letter and the report about Ukrainian challenges and needs and expectations we carried out together with European Women Rectors Association. And here is like opening of the school year this September at our university, and Christmas a month ago. I think that those kids could have been killed, could have been injured, could have damaged life. And they are teachers. Teachers are Ukrainians who also were among refugees. Now the kids are playing football, sitting in the backyard, dancing. Here is the map of the palms of the kids that come from different parts of Ukraine. So we have accommodated a school that enrolls pupils from all Ukraine. I mentioned about Lawyers for Ukraine initiative that we fundraise for medical treatment for injured children. We also organize different conferences, like conferences on the law of war, etc. We also, together with partners from other countries, from Italy, Finland, Austria, who have experience about integrating migrants into their communities, developed a project on how to empower teachers in Lithuania, Romania, Poland, how to equip them, what tools to provide them with to preserve mental well-being of the children. And this way we are thinking about the future of Lithuania, the future of Europe, how to equip teachers who are working with the kids who are our future. We also help them to learn the Lithuanian language, to integrate better in the society starting this fall. So we organize formal language courses as well as do informal talk cafes. Just people sitting in the lounge, bringing cafe, cookies, and talking in Lithuanian and helping people to learn Lithuanian language and to better integrate into our society. In spring 2024, we just wanted to reflect, to realize how do our community feel, what actions were done in a good direction, and carried out academic community survey. And we realized that majority of the people either provided humanitarian aid or donated finances to help Ukrainian refugees and people in Ukraine. But there were other people who did not contribute at all. There was for some reason. Mm-hmm. And we also asked them what were the underlying motives behind the support. And majority of our academic staff and students responded that it was moral obligation, justice, human rights, and caring help to war-affected people. They were also thinking about security of Ukrainian people, prevention of war in Lithuania, and other motives. And 2 years have passed. We asked whether the perception remained the same, and majority of our respondents, students, and academic staff members said that perception remained the same, even deepened understanding, increased empathy, and encouraged active involvement. It is very strange phenomena. When you come to university, you see teens running around the university, and you understand that they are kind of not student-age people. And it causes some uneasiness to academic life. But when you asked our community members, our students and professors, lecturers said that there is no noticeable impact of the school to the university life. And the majority of them said that, okay, let's continue accommodating the school in our premises. And we asked people about, would you be willing to support Ukrainian people now, after 2 years? And majority of people said that, okay, we would be willing to donate to charities, to funds, cooperate with universities, organize different educational events, social initiatives. And we also asked how could university as an organization contribute to refugee integration into Lithuanian society. And the major suggestion was to organize language and cultural orientation courses, help find employment, provide mentorship programs. And we also asked, how do people feel? What is the empathy level to Ukrainian refugees after 2 years of war? Majority of people said that they are equally empathetical to all refugees, no matter which country they come. But there were some people who said, like, more empathetical to Ukrainian war refugees. So after almost 3 years of experience from different actions, I just would like to highlight some lessons learned, what we have learned through this process, what worked well and effectively, and what hasn't worked, or could have worked better. We think that leading and community engagement worked well as mobilizing partners in civic society, advancing humanitarian aid and philanthropy, communication, resource sharing with other organizations. What has not worked well, we think that ensuring sustainability of support and sensitivity level to war-affected people. People have to deal with long-term fatigue, uncertainty, hopelessness, and due to that, people tend to come back to their self-centered personal and work life. Ensuring long-term community engagement and overcoming cultural challenges have also become challenges for our academic community. And to conclude, through this process we have learned that universities are really powerful organizations through their networks, students, parents of students, alumni, experts in different fields, and they can make a big influence on the society. That based on institutional autonomy, on the value systems, universities can make risky and courageous actions, which are not very conventional and traditional as we used. And actually, universities are safeguards of humanistic tradition. They can stand for humanistic tradition in the society and lead and empower local community people, as well as advocate for the most vulnerable, and by doing so, contribute to just and safe future society. So thank you very much, and should you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Madam Rector, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Agata Strządała, and I am from Wrocław Medical University, and I'm going to talk to you today about a similar topic, very similar topic, because I want to concentrate on responsible university in the time of humanitarian crisis. And I will focus on Wrocław Medical University values-based response to migration crisis, which followed outbreak of full-scale aggression by Russia on Ukraine and in February 2022. So a few words about my city, Wrocław, and our university. So this is a university located in Poland, in southwest Poland, and we have a part of the campus which is quite ancient, as you can see, with old-fashioned auditorium, as well as modern clinical university and simulation center as well. We have students from Poland and also from other countries, because we have classes in Polish and also in English. This is the picture from simulation center. And we have many departments: medical, dentist department, also public health as well. We have a vibrant community of students who are engaged in many activities. And our universities a few years ago signed also Magna Carta Universitatum, and as we could hear before, there is a significant shift in values, in the hierarchy of values. So in the past it was more stress autonomy and academic research freedom, while now there is much more stress on social responsibility of universities. As I was saying, the exemplification of this second cluster of values related to social responsibility is the case of helping during the migration crisis because of the war in Ukraine. So to give you the context, as it was already mentioned, many million people actually found themselves in the crisis, and according to official statistics, during the first year, Ukrainian-Polish border crossed over 8 million of people, and more specifically in my city, Wrocław, before the crisis there was 670,000 citizens, and after we have almost 900,000 citizens. And during the last 2 years, the city provided accommodation for around 600,000 people, which was, nearly the whole population of the cities. And now Ukrainian community composed of 1/4 of city population. So we can see that there is a tremendous shift in populational demographic composition. It used to be very homogeneous, now it is not. What were the actions undertaken by university? Since it is medical university, so of course the first action was to organize the direct medical and dental help and also medical transportation from Ukraine, for example, of children suffering with cancer, and also organizing psychological support as well. Later on, also actions of vaccinations against COVID-19 and programs of vaccination of children from Ukraine. Because of the crisis movement, some of them, they couldn't, follow the general schedule of vaccinations in Ukraine. And of course, many collection campaigns, not only money, but also medical equipment, and also drugs, which that was very essential to have a specialist in pharmacy, and we also have pharmaceutical department to provide safe assistance. Then there was also humanitarian help, which was providing immediate short-term stays, typically in sports halls at our university, also mid-term housing in dorms, and long-term in private homes, which was, voluntary personal initiative of members of the university. As an institution of higher education, we've been also intaking students from Ukraine, as well as employing Ukrainian physicians and researchers. Later on, in the second phase of responding to the crisis, we've been also helping in organization of exams at the end of the high school, which are giving the entry to Ukrainian universities. We've been also providing expertise, like vaccination, like working on a vaccination program for children who, at least for a while settled down in Poland, and also war crime documentation. During this, the whole organization that was very much based on mutual collaboration with different parties. First of all, with local government in Wrocław, other universities, associated in, universities from Wrocław, and also neighboring city of Opole. So they've been meeting many times according to the needs, and identifying needs and what's supposed to be done, and sharing resources. sharing information, also cooperation with student organizations, medical organizations, and obviously Ukrainian organizations, national institutions as well. What were the main challenges, problems, obstacles? Of course, the scale of migration, as it was already mentioned, it is like unprecedented situation, which can be compared only to the shift of borders after the Second World War. There have been also some legal obstacles, like for example, when it comes to drug prescriptions, which could have been done by young physicians. So then they've been approved by other authorities like pharmaceutical specialists. Different systems, because Ukraine doesn't belong to the same system as Poland when it comes to educational systems, so that were also the other obstacles. Also when it comes to drugs and treatment protocols, which differ. Of course, lack of financial resources, also a bit of a language barrier, and also, you know, like fatigue and secondary trauma, which can happen to those who help people who directly experience trauma. There've been also, you know, something which at the first glance looked as an obstacle, like lack of coherence, because we had many different grassroots initiatives by students or many medical organizations, and there was a need to coordinate different efforts. Also, the other challenge was to provide safe aid, because you know, sometimes suspicious companies approach offering help in transportation of refugees from Ukrainian border. However, there was a risk that actually it is more to do with human trafficking, which is done under pretense of humanitarian aid. And now I want to go to, you know, like analysis of what was done. I want to compare management by objectives versus management by values. So in everyday situation, university is run rather by the first one, management by objectives, when it comes to regular activities such as publication, rankings, students' achievements, enrollment of numbers of students and patients, etc. However, during the crisis, a different type of management emerged, which is management by values. Values, of course, there is a huge body of literature on this topic, which I'm not going to summarize now because there is no time. But they are ideals that individuals feel that they want to or have to actualize or consider as essential for meaningful life. This second one, management by values, is known to be effective in a rapidly changing environment, unexpected events and crises. So that was exactly the case of this migration crisis. There is a differentiation between stated values, which many universities, they have this kind of stated values describing the mission on university websites versus actual values. They are not always coherent, and not always university actually realize what they stated. So typically, a statement of values is just as it is indicated in literature as a tip of the iceberg. So there are much more and deeper actual values which can have more meaningful and powerful effect on people's motivation. So when it comes to the case of our university, we can see the dynamic is as follows, that they've been a set of implied, not always, you know, like conscious values, which became explicit during the crisis. What were the source of those actual values? Partly they are originated in Polish culture, obviously not only Polish, kindness, hospitality, solidarity, compassion. The other segment is those values which are from ethos of medical professional, which is of course very dear to our universities, such as compassion, care, trust. And they basically emerged to consciousness and became stated values during the crisis. So right away, when the full-scale aggression broke out, there were statements first by rector of our university and also by senate of our university, which expressed their support for Ukraine and indicated those very fundamental values. What are the consequences, long-term consequences for our university? First of all, increased relationship with social environment, with non-governmental organization, especially Ukrainian non-governmental organization, also working in the culture and art, and our university many times is giving them space for, like concerts, meeting up, and other events like that, and also increased relation with Ukrainian universities and hospitals. So we see more cooperation like that. Next one is that new trends in research emerged, especially those which are focusing on post-traumatic stress disorder and trauma in general, and we have a variety of new projects, research projects related to that, how to, for example, cope with stress, how to improve the quality of sleep, etc. All these kind of techniques we are currently developing. The other changes in the workplace, it is increased intercultural sensitivity, inclusiveness, and also changes in curriculum that incorporates those issues. We have also training in intercultural communication for staff, teachers, etc. So what was the key reason why this cooperation and help aim happened to be effective and very quick? So that was the coherence of actual values with later on university stated values. It is obviously not only something typical for our university, it was wider phenomenon all over Poland. It was, wider social phenomenon. And what also happened to be effective is, as I mentioned, this management by values, which allows for quick and flexible response to very quickly changing the situation, influx of more people, new problems that you haven't expected before. So actually management by objectives is here not very effective. And as I mentioned before, there's many grassroots initiatives. They've been working quite well, and this something which at first appeared as lack of coherence happened to be, like a tool which empowered many individuals. So the recommendations, I think it's always worth to consider what in this particular situation is more effective, coordination or control. In our case, it was rather coordination. Effective communication. Effective communication is the key to success. Communication inside, inner communication with different parties, members of university, as well as communication with social environment, city council, other universities, other organizations, Ukrainian organizations as well. Empowering individuals, so this recognition of natural leaders who are emerging during this kind of crisis, and what is more suitable for current situation? Is it management by values or maybe management by objectives? Both are quite essential, but maybe in a bit different context in different situations. Shared decision making and collaborative problem solving. this happened to be very effective. For example, when it comes to cooperation between different universities, that they've been finding solutions. That, for example, this university had more space to accommodate refugees. The other had expertise. So we've been sharing this kind of information and resources as well. Then safe assistance. This is of a crucial importance, as I was mentioning, because sometimes under the pretense of aid, also some unethical situation may happen. So this is very important to, to be sure that what we are doing is ethical, which is obviously not always easy. And in such a situation, when we have such important challenges, it is always also, I guess, important to ask ourselves, what is the price of indifference? That's it. Thank you.
I would like to thank everybody for the extremely interesting and rich presentations. We have a couple of minutes left before the national strike starts. So perhaps one or two questions to the one perhaps presenter, which especially kind of engaged you. It's the chance to ask the question, because then we'll have to really close the doors and go out. Is there a question? Please, Elena. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to reflect upon it. So what's actually what does it mean to be a responsive university? While I was listening to the last two presentations, I was also kind of thinking in parallel, while we do become responsive during the crisis, so what is then the responsive university when there is no crisis? What do we do then? It's more of a reflective question.
So, excellent question. Any kind of volunteers who would like to answer? Chris, please.
I'll take that one. You know, there are, thank you. There are plenty of big challenges, global challenges, national challenges, local challenges. There's our challenge to provide for the future. There's the climate degradation. There's the climate change, poverty, inequality. So a crisis is something that suddenly draws your attention to these big societal challenges. But when there is no crisis, the challenges don't go away. They're still there. So it's all too easy to say there's no crisis, so we don't have to do anything. I think that would be the wrong conclusion to draw.
If there are no other questions, let me... okay, sure.
It's a more personal question about Mykolas University. Is this affordable for me to come to this university to study or something? For the wheelchair user.
If we don't provide scholarships under Erasmus or other means, we try to fundraise from our Research Council of Lithuania or other organizations to provide people opportunities to study at our university. So we are open and welcoming.
I asked about technically, is it visible for me, feasible for me to...
I think after the break, we'll arrange that you can talk with each other. I'm sure we'll have a couple of minutes for that. Thank you so much. I would like to thank everybody for presenting and participating in this workshop. I especially would like to thank our guests for coming to Tbilisi in such a difficult time, and kind of really, it's also, we consider this, apart from all these brilliant presentations we heard, as the act of support. To the many more meetings in the future years. So thank you once again.